The security alarm pierced through my sleep at 4 in the morning, and when I looked at my phone, the camera footage showed my own son Marcus loading boxes from my bedroom into his SUV, while his wife Vanessa stood guard at my front door. My hands didn't shake as I watched them. They should have, but they didn't. I'd been expecting this for 2 years, ever since Victor Delacroix from Sentinel Insurance came to my house with photographs of Marcus at an estate sale in Connecticut, talking to known art thieves. What I didn't expect was the raw pain that shot through my chest seeing my firstborn, the boy I'd raised to be better, carefully wrapping my grandmother's jewelry boxes in bubble wrap like he was protecting them. He wasn't protecting them. He was stealing them. Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. I pressed the button Omar Jackson had installed last month, the one that looked like a regular panic button, but sent a signal straight to Special Agent Raymond Torres. Then I grabbed my robe, the thick terry cloth one Felicia gave me last Christmas, and I walked downstairs like I didn't know what was happening. Like I was just a confused old woman who heard a noise. The performance had to be perfect. Marcus jumped when he saw me standing in the doorway to my bedroom. 3 boxes sat at his feet. My boxes. The ones that held my grandmother's sapphire collection. My mother's pearls, the emerald bracelet my late husband Theodore bought me for our 25th anniversary. Except they didn't hold those things anymore. Those pieces had been in a Swiss vault for 23 months, replaced with elaborate fakes so perfect that Marcus's fence wouldn't know the difference until it was too late. "Mama?" Marcus's voice cracked, but his eyes calculated. I'd seen that look before, when he was 17 and got caught stealing from the church collection plate. Pastor Hughes had called me, heartbroken, and I'd made Marcus apologize to every single congregation member. He'd cried then too, but his eyes had been empty, just like now. "What's happening?" I let my voice waver, let myself sway a little. Vanessa appeared behind him, her face twisted in concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Mama, you gave us permission, remember?" Vanessa's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Last week, you said we could take the jewelry for safekeeping. You said you kept forgetting where you put things." I hadn't said any such thing, and we both knew it. But I looked down at my hands like I was trying to remember, let confusion cloud my face. The security footage would show everything. The audio would prove I'd given no such permission. But Marcus didn't know about the hidden cameras Omar had installed throughout the house. He only knew about the obvious one at the front door, the one he'd been careful to avoid. I don't remember saying that. I touched my temple, a gesture I'd practiced in the mirror. Did I say that? Yes, Mama. Marcus stepped closer, his voice gentle now, the voice he used when he wanted something. You've been forgetting a lot lately. That's why Vanessa and I think it's time we talked about you moving into a care facility. Somewhere safe, where people can watch over you. There it was. The real plan. Take the jewelry, declare me incompetent, lock me away somewhere while they sold off everything Theodore and I had built in 47 years of marriage. My house in Oak Hills worth $900,000. My pension from 30 years of teaching. The rental properties Theodore left me. The stock portfolio they didn't even know existed. But none of that compared to what they really didn't know. That I was the anonymous majority shareholder of Sentinel Insurance, the company that had been tracking international jewelry theft rings for 6 years. That I'd inherited my grandfather's stake in the company and built it into something powerful while teaching 2nd grade by day. That when Victor came to me with evidence my own son was involved in a theft operation spanning 8 countries and 3 continents, I'd made the hardest choice of my life. I'd volunteered to be bait. A care facility? I let tears fill my eyes. Real tears, because even though I knew what Marcus was, even though I'd known for 2 years, it still broke something in me that would never fully heal. But this is my home. We'll talk about it later, Mama. Marcus picked up one of the boxes. Let us take these now, okay? We'll keep them safe. The alarm was still ringing, loud enough that Mrs. Beatrice Allen from next door had probably already called the police. Right on schedule. I'd told her months ago that if she ever heard my alarm, call 911 immediately and don't stop calling until they arrived. Beatrice had looked at me strangely, but promised she would. "The alarm," I said softly. "Why is it so loud?" "You must have set it off by accident, Mama." Vanessa moved toward the keypad. "What's the code?" I'd changed it 3 weeks ago. She didn't know that. I can't remember." The confusion in my voice was real now, but not for the reason they thought. I was thinking about Camille and Dante, Marcus's children, my grandchildren. What would this do to them? 16-year-old Camille with her dreams of medical school, 12-year-old Dante who still hugged me tight every Sunday after church. They didn't know what their parents were. They couldn't know. Not yet. Blue lights flashed through the front windows. Officer Benjamin Cole was first through the door, a young officer I'd taught when he was in 2nd grade. His eyes widened when he saw the scene. Me in my robe looking confused, Marcus and Vanessa with boxes of jewelry, the alarm still screaming. "Mrs. Washington?" Officer Cole's hand stayed near his weapon. "Is everything all right?" "These are my parents," Marcus said quickly, stepping between us. "My mother gave us permission to take some items for safekeeping. She's been having memory issues. The alarm was an accident." "That true, Mrs. Washington?" Officer Cole looked at me carefully. This was the moment. Say yes, and the plan continued. Say no, and everything accelerated before we were ready. Agent Torres needed 3 more weeks to track the offshore accounts, to identify all the players in Marcus's network. We had evidence of thefts in Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New York, but the international connections were still being mapped. If I stopped this now, some of the network would slip away. So I looked at Officer Cole, let my eyes go unfocused, and said, "I'm not sure. Did I say they could take my things? I can't remember." Officer Cole exchanged a glance with his partner. I saw the decision forming on his face. Domestic issue, elderly woman, possible dementia, no clear victim statement. They'd file a report and move on. Exactly what Agent Torres said would happen. "Do you have documentation of your mother's condition?" Officer Cole asked Marcus. "We're in the process of getting a medical evaluation," Vanessa answered smoothly. "But you can see she's confused. We're just trying to help her before she loses something valuable or hurts herself." The lies came so easily to her. I wondered how many times she'd done this before, how many other elderly people she and Marcus had targeted. The FBI file Victor showed me had 8 cases that matched their pattern, but Torres suspected there were dozens more. Officer Cole looked at me again. "Mrs. Washington, would you like to file a report?" "A report?" I touched my head. "About what?" "I'm sorry, officer, I'm very tired." "We'll take her back to bed," Marcus said, already moving toward me. "Thank you for coming out. I'm sorry my mother troubled you." But Officer Cole was looking at the boxes now, really looking at them. "That's a lot of jewelry to take for safekeeping. Mind if I see some ID from both of you?" Marcus's jaw tightened. But he pulled out his wallet. Vanessa did the same. Officer Cole wrote down their information, taking his time, and I knew he was suspicious. He'd been a smart child, always asking questions, and he was a smart officer now. "I'm going to file a report about this," Officer Cole said finally. "Mrs. Washington, if you remember anything, or if you want to press charges, you call the station directly and ask for me. Officer Benjamin Cole, you remember me, don't you? I was in your class in 1997. "Benjamin?" Recognition sparked in my eyes. Not fake this time. "Little Benjamin Cole who always brought me apples?" He smiled. "Yes, ma'am, that's me. You still have my number in your phone?" I didn't, but I nodded anyway. "Good. You call me if anything worries you. Anything at all." He looked at Marcus. "Your mother is a treasure to this community. A lot of people care about her well-being. The warning was clear. Marcus heard it, and I saw hatred flash across his face before he masked it with a smile. "Of course, officer. We love her too." Officer Cole and his partner left, and the house fell silent except for the tick of the grandfather clock Theodore's father had made by hand. Marcus set the boxes down hard enough that I heard glass clink inside. Let him think something broke. Let him get angry. The angrier he got, the more mistakes he'd make. "Mama, we need to talk." Marcus's gentle voice was gone. "Vanessa and I have been looking at your finances." "My finances?" Real alarm crept into my voice now. "Your accounts have unusual activity, large withdrawals, transfers to offshore accounts." Vanessa pulled out papers from her purse. "We're worried someone is taking advantage of you. That's another reason we think a care facility would be best. They can protect you from financial exploitation." The audacity of it made me dizzy. They were the ones who'd tried to hack my accounts, who'd been probing my security for the past year. Omar had documented every attempt, every keystroke, every failed password guess. But they'd twisted it around, prepared to claim I was the one being exploited by some imaginary criminal, while they positioned themselves as my protectors. "I don't understand," I whispered. "I haven't made any unusual transactions." "That's because you don't remember, Mama." Marcus knelt in front of me, taking my hands. His hands, my son's hands, the hands I'd held when he learned to walk, felt like ice. "That's what dementia does. It makes you forget." "But Vanessa and I are here to help you. We've already talked to Felicia and Jerome. We're all in agreement that you need more support than we can provide at home." They'd talked to my other children. My daughter, who lived 3 states away and called once a month, my youngest son, who was serving overseas in the military. Neither of them knew Marcus like I did. Neither of them would question his concern. And neither of them knew about the FBI investigation that was about to turn their brother's world upside down. "I need to sleep," I said finally. "Can we talk about this tomorrow?" "Of course, Mama." Marcus stood, but his eyes promised this wasn't over. "But we're taking the jewelry tonight, just for safekeeping." I watched them carry the boxes out to their SUV, watched the taillights disappear down my street. Only then did I pull out the phone Omar had given me, the one that looked like a regular cell phone but was anything but. Agent Torres answered on the first ring. "We got it all, Mrs. Washington. Video, audio, GPS activated. The trackers in those boxes will lead us straight to their fence." "How long?" My voice shook now, the performance over. 3 weeks, maybe less. We track where the jewelry goes, identify the buyers, map the whole network. Then we move. I know this is hard, but what you're doing is going to save dozens of people from the same exploitation. You're incredibly brave." I didn't feel brave. I felt 71 years old and tired and heartbroken. But I thought about the files Victor had shown me, the elderly widow in Connecticut who lost her husband's coin collection worth $400,000. The retired teacher in Massachusetts who lost family heirlooms passed down for 5 generations. The elderly couple in Rhode Island who lost everything and died in a state-funded nursing home 6 months later, still believing their son had been trying to help them. "I'll be ready," I told Agent Torres. After we hung up, I sat in my living room as dawn broke through my curtains. The house felt different now, violated by my own child's hands. I thought about calling Reverend Hughes, but it was too early, and besides, he didn't know about the investigation. Nobody at Oakwood Baptist Church knew. They thought I was just Dorothy Washington, retired 2nd-grade teacher, devoted grandmother, faithful servant of the Lord. They didn't know about the board meetings I attended under my legal name, Dorothy Washington Bennett, now the name from my first marriage that I'd kept for business purposes. They didn't know about the quarterly reports I reviewed, the investigations I approved, the policies I helped shape. I'd kept that part of my life separate for 40 years, ever since my grandfather died and left me his shares in Sentinel Insurance with one request: use this power to protect people who can't protect themselves. I'd tried to protect Marcus. I'd tried to raise him right, send him to good schools, teach him about faith and family and integrity. His father, Theodore, had been a good man, a faithful man, a man who worked 3 jobs to give our children everything. Where had we gone wrong? What had we missed? My phone buzzed. A text from Camille. "Grams, are you okay? Mom and Dad came home with boxes from your house. They said you're confused and might have to move. Please tell me that's not true." My heart clenched. She didn't know. She couldn't know. Not yet. I texted back. "I'm fine, baby girl. Don't worry about your Grams. I'll see you Sunday at church, okay? I love you." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. "I love you too, Grams. I'm here if you need anything." Sweet Camille. She'd inherited her great-grandfather's heart, Theodore's kindness. She was nothing like her father, and I'd make sure this investigation protected her as much as possible. Agent Torres had promised me that when the arrests came, we'd have support services ready for the children, counselors who specialized in family trauma. Sunday. 4 more days until I'd see my grandchildren at church. Until I'd have to smile and pretend everything was normal while Marcus and Vanessa sat in the same pew, singing the same hymns, shaking hands with the same congregation members they were planning to exploit. Because that was the other thing the FBI had discovered. Marcus and Vanessa had been identifying new targets at church, at community events, anywhere elderly people gathered with families. Mrs. Beatrice Allen from next door appeared at my window, worry creasing her dark brown face. I waved to let her know I was okay, but she came to the door anyway, not waiting for an invitation before letting herself in with the key I'd given her years ago. "Dorothy Washington, what in heaven's name happened this morning?" Beatrice was 83 years old and sharper than most people half her age. "I saw the police cars, saw Marcus loading boxes. Tell me that boy didn't do what I think he did." I opened my mouth to lie, to protect the investigation, but Beatrice held up her hand. "And don't you dare tell me nothing's wrong. I've known you for 42 years, since you and Theodore moved to this neighborhood. I watched you raise those children. I saw what Marcus was becoming even when you didn't want to see it. Now you tell me the truth, Dorothy. All of it." So I did. Because Beatrice was my oldest friend, because she'd earned my trust through 4 decades of friendship, and because I needed someone to know the truth before the world exploded in 3 weeks. I told her about Victor and the FBI and the jewelry in Switzerland, and my role as the majority shareholder in Sentinel Insurance. I told her about the sting operation, the hidden cameras, the GPS trackers and fake jewelry boxes. When I finished, Beatrice was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across my kitchen table and took my hands in hers, her papery skin warm against mine. "You're doing the right thing," she said firmly. "It's gonna hurt like nothing you've ever felt before, but you're doing the right thing. And when that boy goes to prison, you're gonna stand tall, you hear me? Because you're not just saving yourself. You're saving every other mother and father and grandmother who might become his next victim." "I keep thinking I could have stopped this earlier," I whispered. "If I'd paid more attention. If I'd been stricter. If I'd—" "No." Beatrice's voice was sharp. "You loved your children the best way you knew how. You gave them everything. What Marcus chose to become, that's on him, not on you. You hear me, Dorothy? This is not your fault." But it felt like my fault as I sat in that kitchen while the morning sun rose higher and my phone stayed silent. It felt like my fault when I remembered Marcus as a little boy, bringing me dandelions from the yard, telling me I was the best mama in the whole world. It felt like my fault when I thought about Theodore, gone these past 8 years, and how disappointed he would be in the son we'd raised together. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Felicia, my daughter. "Mom, Marcus called me. He says you're having serious memory problems and that you need to consider assisted living. Is that true?" I closed my eyes. The lies were spreading, the net closing tighter. In 3 weeks, when the FBI made their move, The truth would blow everything wide open. But until then, I had to play my role. "I've been a little forgetful," I said carefully. "But I'm fine, sweetheart. How are things in Virginia?" "Don't change the subject, Mom. Marcus sent me documentation about unusual activity in your accounts. He thinks someone is stealing from you." "The only person stealing from me is Marcus," I wanted to scream. But I couldn't. Not yet. "I'm handling it," I said instead. "Don't worry about me. How's Isaiah? Is he excited about his birthday party?" Felicia let me change the subject, but I heard the worry in her voice. She'd call Marcus back, they'd talk about me, decide together what needed to be done about their failing mother. They meant well, my other children. They just didn't know who Marcus really was. After I hung up with Felicia, I walked through my house. This home Theodore and I had bought in 1983 when we scraped together every penny we had for the down payment. Every room held memories. The kitchen where we'd cooked Sunday dinners for our growing family, the living room where we'd celebrated Christmases and birthdays, the bedroom where Theodore had died peacefully in his sleep with my hand in his. Marcus wanted to take this from me. He wanted to lock me away, sell this house, steal everything Theodore and I had built. And for what? Money? Greed? The thrill of getting away with something? I stopped in front of the family photos on the hallway wall. Marcus at 5 years old, gap-toothed and smiling. Marcus at 15, awkward in his first suit before his first dance. Marcus at 25, holding baby Camille in his arms with such tenderness that I'd thought maybe he'd turned a corner, maybe fatherhood would change him. But it hadn't. If anything, having children had made him more ruthless, because now he was stealing not just from strangers, but from his own mother, teaching his wife that family loyalty meant nothing compared to money. My phone rang. Agent Torres. "Mrs. Washington, we have a problem. The GPS trackers just went offline all at once. All 3 boxes. Marcus must have found them." The GPS signal dying wasn't supposed to happen. Agent Torres kept saying, "Damn," over and over while I stood in my kitchen holding the phone with both hands to keep them steady. Marcus had found the trackers. He'd found them, which meant he knew I wasn't as confused as I'd pretended to be, which meant I was in danger. "Mrs. Washington, I'm sending units to your house right now," Torres said. "Pack a bag. We're moving you to a safe location." "No." The word came out stronger than I expected. "If I disappear, Marcus will know for certain that I've been setting him up. He'll run, and you'll lose the whole network." "Ma'am, with respect, your safety is more important than this case." "With respect, Agent Torres, I didn't spend 2 years of my life on this operation to watch Marcus and his partners disappear into the wind." I moved to my window, looking out at the quiet street where I'd lived for 42 years. "We adjust the plan. What can we do?" Torres was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice held reluctant admiration. "We accelerate everything. Push Marcus into making his move now instead of waiting 3 weeks. If he thinks you're onto him, he'll either run or he'll try to neutralize you faster. We make him choose the second option." "How do we do that?" "You call him. Tell him you want to discuss what happened this morning. Set up a meeting at your bank, somewhere public with witnesses. While you're there, you'll sign documents that Omar will prepare. Documents that look like you're making Marcus power of attorney, but that actually protect all your assets. We'll have surveillance on the bank, on your house, on everything. When he makes his move, we'll be ready." My heart hammered against my ribs. 71 years old, and I was about to walk into a trap with my own son as the predator. "When?" I asked. "Today. This morning. The faster we move, the less time he has to plan." I looked at the clock. 7:38 in the morning. In 12 hours, this could all be over, or I could be dead. "Set it up," I told Torres. 2 hours later, I sat in Lloyd Henderson's office at First Community Bank, the same bank where Theodore and I had opened our first checking account in 1981. Lloyd had managed this branch for 23 years, and he'd handled our mortgage, our business loans, every financial milestone of our life. When Agent Torres called him to explain the situation, Lloyd's first words were, "That boy is trying to rob Miss Dorothy, not on my watch." Now Lloyd sat across from me with papers spread between us, his brown face grave behind his wire-rimmed glasses. "These documents look like standard power of attorney forms, but what they actually do is lock down every account, every asset, everything in your name. Marcus signs these thinking he's getting control, but the moment his signature hits the paper, every account freezes and alerts go straight to the FBI. He'll be furious when he realizes," I said quietly. "He'll be arrested when he realizes," Lloyd corrected. "Agent Torres has teams positioned all around this bank. The moment Marcus tries anything, they move in." My phone buzzed. "Marcus." "Mom, we need to talk about this morning. Can you meet me at the bank at 10? Vanessa and I want to help you get your finances organized." I texted back with shaking fingers. "Okay, sweetie. I'll be at First Community at 10. His response came immediately. "Good. This is for your own protection, Mom. You'll thank us later." The arrogance of it made my stomach turn. He actually believed I'd thank him for stealing from me, for planning to lock me away, for destroying everything his father and I had built. Beatrice arrived at 9:45, dressed in her Sunday best despite it being Thursday. "I'm not letting you face that snake alone," she announced. "I'll be in the lobby. If things go wrong, I'm calling the police again, and I don't care what your FBI man says about operations and surveillance." "Beatrice, don't you Beatrice me. You're my best friend, Dorothy Washington, and I'll be right there whether you like it or not." So when Marcus and Vanessa walked into the bank at exactly 10 o'clock, Beatrice was sitting in the lobby reading a magazine, and I was in Lloyd's office with documents spread across his desk and my hands folded in my lap like a confused old woman who needed help. Marcus hugged me, actually hugged me, pressing his cheek against mine like he cared, like he loved me, like he hadn't tried to rob me blind just 6 hours earlier. Vanessa stood behind him, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Thanks for meeting us, Mama," Marcus said, settling into the chair next to mine. "Lloyd, good to see you. We appreciate you making time for this." Lloyd's face remained professionally neutral. "Of course. Mrs. Washington called this morning saying she wanted to organize her affairs. Said you'd offered to help." "That's right." Marcus leaned forward, his voice warm and concerned. "My mother's been having some memory issues lately. We think it's best if Vanessa and I help manage things for a while, just until she's feeling better." "I see." Lloyd pushed the papers forward. "Well, I've prepared the standard documents. Power of attorney, access to all accounts, authorization for financial decisions. Mrs. Washington, do you understand what these papers mean?" I let my eyes drift over the documents, let confusion cloud my face. "You'll help me, won't you, Marcus? I don't want to make mistakes." "Of course, Mama." Marcus picked up a pen. "This just means I can help you pay bills, manage your accounts, make sure everything is taken care of. You trust me, don't you?" The question hung in the air between us. Did I trust him? This man who came from my body, who I'd nursed and raised and loved with everything I had? This stranger who looked like my son, but had the soul of a thief? "I trust you," I lied. Marcus signed first, his signature bold and confident across the bottom of each page. Vanessa signed as witness, her pen strokes quick and efficient. Then Lloyd pushed the papers to me. "Mrs. Washington, before you sign, I need to ask you some questions. It's standard procedure." Lloyd's voice was gentle but firm. "Do you understand that these documents give Marcus Washington full access to your accounts and assets?" "Yes," I whispered. "And you're signing these of your own free will, without coercion or pressure?" I looked at Marcus, at his encouraging smile, at the greed hiding behind his eyes. "Yes." And you understand that once these are signed, Marcus will have the authority to make financial decisions on your behalf? I understand. Lloyd nodded. Then please sign here, here, and here. My hand trembled as I picked up the pen. Not from fear, but from rage. Because in this moment, watching my son practically vibrate with excitement over stealing from his own mother, I understood exactly what Theodore would have wanted me to do. Protect myself. Protect others. Stop this man who wore our son's face but had none of his father's honor. I signed my name on each line, my signature barely legible from the shaking of my hand. Marcus practically snatched the papers from the desk. Perfect. Thank you, Mama. You won't regret this. Now, Lloyd, we'd like to make a withdrawal. How much can we access today? Lloyd's expression didn't change. Well, let me check the accounts. There may be some delays due to security protocols, but let's see what we can do. He turned to his computer, typed for a moment, then frowned. Typed again. The frown deepened. That's odd, Lloyd said slowly. The system shows that all of Mrs. Washington's accounts have been flagged for review. There's a freeze on all transactions pending investigation. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. What? Marcus's voice went sharp. What investigation? I'm not certain. Let me call our main office. Lloyd picked up his phone, but I saw his eyes flick toward the door, toward where Agent Torres's team was positioned. This will just take a moment. No. Vanessa stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. We have power of attorney. You can't freeze accounts we now have legal access to. I'm afraid bank policy requires that we investigate any unusual flags before... My mother just signed over control. Marcus's voice rose, drawing attention from the tellers outside the office. Those are our accounts now. Actually, they're still Mrs. Washington's accounts, Lloyd said calmly. The power of attorney gives you authority to manage them, but the accounts remain in her name. And if there's been suspicious activity, we're required by federal law to... Marcus lunged across the desk so fast that Lloyd jerked backward, his chair hitting the wall. Vanessa grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin through my cardigan. What did you do? Marcus's face was inches from mine, and I saw him clearly for the first time in years. Saw the monster that had been hiding behind the smile, behind the I love you, Mama, behind the Sunday church services and the family dinners. You set us up. You weren't confused at all. I don't know what you mean, I said, but my voice was steady now. No more trembling, no more confusion. Maybe you should tell me what you did, Marcus. Tell me about Connecticut. Tell me about Massachusetts and Rhode Island and all those other elderly people you stole from. His face went pale, then flushed red with rage. You crazy old... The door burst open. Agent Torres, flanked by 2 other agents, weapons drawn. Marcus Washington, Vanessa Washington, you're under arrest for wire fraud, elder abuse, theft, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny. Step away from Mrs. Washington, now. Everything happened fast after that. Marcus shouting that I'd tricked him, that I was a liar, that I'd pay for this. Vanessa trying to run before an agent caught her in the lobby where Beatrice sat watching with grim satisfaction. Handcuffs clicking. Miranda rights being read. Lloyd standing protectively in front of me while Marcus screamed threats that made the other bank customers gasp and pull out their phones to record. And through it all, I sat very still, watching my son be dragged away, and I felt nothing but cold relief. Agent Torres crouched beside my chair once Marcus and Vanessa were secured in separate police cars outside. Are you all right, Mrs. Washington? I'm fine. I stood up, smoothed my skirt, and looked at the crowd of people staring through the bank windows at the commotion. What happens now? Now we follow the trail to everyone Marcus and Vanessa have been working with. The jewelry is already gone. They moved it fast after finding the trackers. but we have enough evidence from the bank fraud, the power of attorney scam, and the recordings from your house to put them away for a long time. And once we flip one of their partners, and someone always flips, we'll get the location of the stolen goods and everyone else involved." "My grandchildren," I said quietly. "Camille and Dante. They can't see this on the news. I need to tell them first." "We have family services on standby. But Mrs. Washington, you should know that there's more." Torres pulled out his phone, showed me a photo of a warehouse. "We've been tracking Marcus's communications. He wasn't just stealing from individuals. He's part of a network that's been targeting insurance claims, creating fake victims, filing fraudulent reports. The total fraud we're looking at is close to $500 million across 8 states and 3 countries." "$500 million?" I sat back down. "Your son wasn't just a thief, ma'am. He was running one of the largest organized crime operations we've seen in elder exploitation. The jewelry from your house? They already tried to sell it through a fence in New York. When the fence realized the pieces were fake, he called Marcus's supplier, who happens to be under surveillance by Interpol. That call triggered alerts in 4 countries. You just helped us crack an international case." I thought about my grandmother's sapphires, the real ones, safe in Switzerland. Thought about my mother's pearls that she'd worn on her wedding day. Thought about the emerald bracelet Theodore had saved for months to buy. All safe, all protected. Because I'd planned ahead, because Victor Delacroix had warned me 2 years ago, because I'd chosen to fight instead of becoming another victim. "What about the other victims?" I asked. "The people Marcus and Vanessa already stole from?" "That's where it gets interesting." Torres smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in 2 years. "Because you're the majority shareholder of Sentinel Insurance, and because Marcus was defrauding insurance claims, you have the legal authority to authorize immediate restitution from company funds. We recover the stolen property, Sentinel Insurance compensates the victims, and the company goes after Marcus's network for repayment. Everyone wins except the criminals." "How many victims?" 37 confirmed, probably closer to 60 once we dig deeper. Total losses estimated at $43 million. But with your authorization and the criminal seizures, we can make most of them whole within 6 months. 60 people. 60 families destroyed the way Marcus had tried to destroy me. 60 people who'd trusted their children, their relatives, their caregivers, only to have everything stolen. "Do it," I said. "Authorize whatever you need. Those people deserve justice." Torres stood, offered me his hand. "You're remarkable, Mrs. Washington. Most people would have fallen apart during what you just did. You stared down your own son and didn't blink." "I blinked," I said quietly. "I'm still blinking. But my husband didn't raise me to be a victim, and I won't start now. Beatrice drove me home because I couldn't stop shaking once the adrenaline wore off. The house felt different when we walked in, cleaner somehow, like Marcus's presence had been scrubbed away. Omar Jackson was already there, removing the hidden cameras, packing up surveillance equipment. "Mrs. Washington." Omar nodded respectfully. "I heard it went down smooth. You did good." "I feel like I'm going to throw up," I admitted. "That's normal. You just turned in your own son. Nobody should have to do that." Omar paused in his packing. "But you saved a lot of people today. That's got to count for something." It counted for something, but it didn't make it hurt less. My phone started ringing and didn't stop. Felicia, crying and confused, demanding to know if it was true that Marcus had been arrested for elder abuse. Jerome calling from overseas, his voice breaking as he tried to understand how his big brother could do this. And Camille, sweet 16-year-old Camille, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "Grams, they took my dad. They're saying he hurt you. They're saying he's a criminal. It's not true, is it? Please tell me it's not true." I wanted to lie to her, wanted to protect her from this ugliness, but she deserved the truth. "Baby, Your father made some very bad choices. He hurt a lot of people, including me, but none of that is your fault, do you understand? You and Dante are innocent in all this. But everyone's going to think we're criminals too. Everyone at school, everyone at church, everyone's going to look at us like we're trash. Then you hold your head up and show them exactly who you are, I said firmly. You show them that Camille Washington is a strong, smart, beautiful young woman who is nothing like her father. You hear me? I hear you, Grams. Her voice was small. Can I come stay with you? I don't want to be in this house right now. It feels wrong. Of course, baby. You and Dante both. Pack some things and come over. We'll figure this out together. After we hung up, I called Reverend Hughes. The whole church would know by Sunday, might already know from the news or social media. I needed him to hear it from me first. Dorothy, I've been praying all afternoon. Officer Cole called me after he filed that report this morning. I hoped it wasn't true. Reverend Hughes's deep voice was heavy with sorrow. How are you holding up, sister? I'm tired, Reverend. So tired. Come to church tomorrow, not Sunday, tomorrow. We're having a special prayer service, just the deacons and some of the older members. Sister Francine already organized it when she heard what happened. We're going to surround you with love, Dorothy. You're not alone in this. I started crying then, the kind of crying I'd been holding back all day. Not because of Marcus, but because my church family, my community, was rallying around me without even being asked. Beatrice took the phone from my hand and finished the conversation while I sobbed into a dish towel at my kitchen table. When I finally stopped, my eyes were swollen and my throat was raw, but something tight in my chest had loosened. Better? Beatrice asked gently. Better, I agreed. That night, Camille and Dante showed up with suitcases and red-rimmed eyes. Dante clung to me without saying a word, and Camille moved through the house like a ghost. We ordered pizza because none of us could face cooking, and we sat in the living room eating in silence while the news played on TV. Local man arrested in multi-state elder fraud operation, the anchor announced. Marcus Washington, 45, and his wife, Vanessa Washington, 39, are being held without bond following their arrest this morning at First Community Bank. The FBI says the couple is part of a larger network responsible for defrauding elderly victims of millions of dollars. In an unusual twist, the primary victim who helped expose the operation is Washington's own mother, 71-year-old Dorothy Washington, a retired teacher and prominent member of the community. My face appeared on screen, a photo from the church directory. Then Marcus's mugshot. Then footage of him being loaded into a police car, still shouting about betrayal. Dante turned off the TV. I'm sorry, Grams, he said quietly. I'm sorry my dad hurt you. Oh, baby. I pulled him close. You have nothing to apologize for. Nothing. Are people going to hate us? Camille asked from the doorway. Some might, I answered honestly. But the people who matter, the people who really know you, they're going to love you just the same. And anyone who judges you for your father's crimes isn't worth your time anyway. We slept that night in the same house, my grandchildren safe under my roof, while their parents sat in separate cells downtown. Agent Torres called at 11 p.m. to tell me they'd identified 3 more co-conspirators and recovered approximately $14 million in stolen property from a storage facility in Newark. This is the biggest bust we've had in years, Torres said. You should be proud, Mrs. Washington. But I wasn't proud. I was heartbroken and exhausted and wondering what Theodore would think of all this, of how his son had turned out, of how I'd had to betray our child to protect myself and others. Friday morning brought the prayer service at church. Reverend Hughes, Sister Francine, and 40 other members gathered in the sanctuary to pray over me. They laid hands on my shoulders and my head, and they prayed for strength, for healing, for justice, for my grandchildren, for mercy even for Marcus and Vanessa's souls. Sister Francine hugged me afterward, her ample body warm and solid. We've got you, Dorothy. your family, and family takes care of family. That afternoon, Victor Delacroix arrived at my house with the board of directors from Sentinel Insurance. They presented me with papers showing that the company was authorizing full restitution for all of Marcus's identified victims, plus legal support for the criminal cases, plus funding for a new elder protection division that would help prevent this kind of fraud in the future. "We want to name it after you," Victor said. "The Dorothy Washington Elder Protection Initiative. Your courage in exposing this operation, even though it was your own family, exemplifies everything we want this company to stand for." "No," I said firmly. "Name it after the victims. Name it after the 60 people who lost everything. Name it after the couple in Rhode Island who died in poverty because their son stole their retirement. They're the ones who deserve recognition." Victor smiled. "Then we'll name it the Victims' Justice Initiative, and we'll put your name on the advisory board. Deal?" "Deal." By Friday evening, the story had gone national. News crews parked outside my house. Reporters called my phone constantly. My face was on every local channel and several national ones. The story had everything: betrayal, family drama, an elderly woman fighting back, international crime, massive fraud. And then Detective Sheila Montgomery called. "Mrs. Washington, we need you to come down to the station. Marcus is asking to see you." My blood went cold. "Why?" "He says he'll only talk to our investigators if you're there. He says you owe him that much." "I don't owe him anything." "I know, ma'am. But he's got information about the larger network. Names, locations, offshore accounts. He's offering to cooperate, but only if you come down here and hear him out." I looked at Beatrice, who'd been sitting beside me through all of this. She shook her head firmly. "Don't do it, Dorothy. That boy doesn't deserve another second of your time." But I thought about those 60 victims, about the people who were still waiting for justice, about the criminals who were still out there stealing from vulnerable elderly people. "I'll come," I told Detective Montgomery. "But Agent Torres needs to be there, and I want it on record that I'm doing this under protest." 2 hours later, I sat in an interrogation room at the police station with Agent Torres beside me and a recording camera pointed at Marcus through a two-way mirror. My son looked terrible, his eyes sunken, his face unshaven, his jumpsuit wrinkled. "Hello, Mama," Marcus said when they brought him in. I said nothing. "I need you to know something." Marcus leaned forward, his chains clinking. "This wasn't personal. It was never personal. It was just business." "You stole from your own mother and you're calling it business?" "I stole from everyone, Mama. Rich people, poor people, family, strangers. It didn't matter. Money doesn't care who it comes from." He smiled, and it was the most chilling thing I'd ever seen. "And you know what? I would have gotten away with it if you hadn't been secretly rich this whole time. That was the twist I didn't see coming. My mama, the school teacher, secretly a millionaire playing spy games with the FBI. I was protecting myself from you." "No, you were protecting your money from me. Let's be honest. You never actually cared about those other victims. You cared about your assets." Marcus's voice turned bitter. "You're no better than I am, Mama. You just have a better PR team." Agent Torres started to speak, but I held up my hand. "You want to know the difference between you and me, Marcus?" I leaned forward until we were eye to eye. "When I found out what you were doing, I could have just protected myself. I could have moved my money, changed my locks, and let you keep stealing from other people. But I didn't. I spent 2 years helping the FBI build a case against you because those other victims mattered to me. Because doing the right thing mattered more than protecting my son." "Very noble," Marcus's voice dripped sarcasm. "You want a medal?" "I want you to give Agent Torres the names and locations of everyone in your network. I want you to help us recover every stolen dollar, every stolen heirloom, every piece of property you and your partners took from people who trusted you." And then I want you to spend the rest of your life thinking about the fact that your own mother had more integrity in her little finger than you had in your entire body." Marcus stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "You win, Mama. You win." He turned to Agent Torres. "Get me a pen and paper. I'll give you everything. Names, accounts, locations, the whole network. 23 people across 6 countries, 300 million in assets, connections to Russian mob, Chinese triads, even some dirty cops and lawyers. I'll give you all of it." "Why?" Torres asked suspiciously. "Because my mama's right." Marcus looked at me with something that might have been respect or might have been hatred. I couldn't tell anymore. "She beat me, fair and square. And the only thing I hate more than losing is letting my partners get away clean while I rot in here." They took Marcus away after that, and I sat in that interrogation room feeling hollowed out and exhausted. Agent Torres was thrilled, already making calls about expanded investigations and international cooperation. But all I could think about was the little boy who used to bring me dandelions and tell me I was the best mama in the world. That little boy was gone, had been gone for years, and I'd just helped lock away the monster who'd taken his place. Beatrice drove me home again, and when we pulled up to my house, I saw something that made me start crying all over again. My porch was covered in flowers. Dozens of bouquets, cards, gifts, all from neighbors and church members and people I'd taught over the years. A banner hung across my door. "We love you, Miss Dorothy." "See?" Beatrice squeezed my hand. "That's your real family. That's who you are. Not Marcus. Not what he did. You." Inside, Camille and Dante had made dinner with Felicia, who'd driven up from Virginia the moment she heard. My daughter hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Mama. I should have seen what Marcus was." "None of us saw it," I said. "He was good at hiding." We ate together, my family that was left, the ones who weren't criminals and liars. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt like maybe things would be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. My phone rang at 11 that night. Agent Torres, his voice urgent. "Mrs. Washington, I'm sorry to call so late, but you need to know. We followed up on one of the addresses Marcus gave us. We found a warehouse full of stolen property, including jewelry from over 200 victims we didn't even know about. But there's something else. We found evidence that Marcus was planning something big. Documents about identity theft, financial fraud, something he called the Inheritance Project. He was going to fake your death." The world tilted sideways. "What?" "He was going to fake your death, have you declared legally dead, and claim your entire estate, including your shares in Sentinel Insurance. He didn't just want to rob you, Mrs. Washington. He wanted to erase you completely." I sat down hard on my bed, the phone pressed to my ear. "When?" "Next month. He already had the paperwork drawn up, the death certificate ready to file, everything. If we hadn't arrested him today, by Christmas you would have been legally dead, and he would have owned everything you built." After Torres hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about how close I'd come to losing everything. Not just my money, but my identity, my existence, my very life on paper. And I realized something that made me sit up straighter, made the tears dry on my face, made steel fill my spine where heartbreak had been. I wasn't just a victim who fought back. I was a survivor who'd saved 60 people, who'd exposed an international crime network, who'd protected her grandchildren and her community and herself. Marcus had tried to erase me, but instead, I'd erased him. That was the moment I stopped mourning my son and started planning what came next. Because this story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The first death threat arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Marcus's arrest. Someone slipped it under my door while I was at church. Crude letters cut from magazines spelling out, "You're next," on cheap notebook paper. Officer Benjamin Cole dusted it for fingerprints, while Beatrice made tea in my kitchen and pretended her hands weren't shaking. "This is the fourth one we've found," Officer Cole said quietly. "Someone left one at the church, one at Mrs. Allen's house, and one at the bank where Lloyd works. They're targeting everyone involved in Marcus's arrest." "It's his partners," I said. "The ones Agent Torres hasn't caught yet." "We have patrol cars circling your neighborhood every hour, but Mrs. Washington, you need to consider protective custody until the trial. These people are dangerous." "These people steal from old ladies," I said firmly. "I'm not running from them." But 2 nights later, someone threw a brick through my front window with another note attached. "Drop the charges, or drop dead." Camille screamed when the glass shattered, and Dante grabbed the baseball bat he'd been keeping by his bed since his father's arrest. That's when I knew things had gone too far. Agent Torres moved us to a hotel downtown, a nice place with security and room service and views of the city. But it didn't feel like home, and my grandchildren moved through the rooms like prisoners, quiet and scared and angry all at once. "I hate him," Camille said one night, staring out the window. "I hate my father for doing this to us, for making us afraid in our own lives." "I know, baby." "No, you don't know." She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Everyone at school treats me like I'm contaminated. My best friend's parents won't let her talk to me anymore. The college counselor asked if I was emotionally stable enough for applications. They all think I'm going to turn out like him." "Then prove them wrong. Show them exactly who Camille Washington is." "Who am I?" Her voice broke. "I don't even know anymore." I held her while she cried, and I thought about all the other grandchildren out there, the ones whose parents had stolen and lied and destroyed lives, the innocent ones who carried their parents' shame like chains around their necks. That's when I knew what I had to do after this was over. The Victims' Justice Initiative wouldn't just help the people who'd been stolen from. It would help their families, too. All the families shattered by greed. The trial started on a cold Monday in November, 6 weeks after Marcus's arrest. The courthouse was packed with reporters, victims, FBI agents, and spectators who'd followed the story on the news. I sat in the front row with Agent Torres on one side and Beatrice on the other, wearing the navy blue suit Theodore had bought me for our 40th anniversary. Marcus was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his wrists cuffed, his face expressionless. He looked at me once, and I looked right back, refusing to flinch, refusing to show weakness. The prosecutor was a sharp woman named Angela Chen. No, that name's banned. The prosecutor was a sharp woman named Andrea Daniels, who laid out the case with brutal efficiency. 23 co-conspirators across 6 countries. 317 identified victims. $462 million in documented theft. Connections to Russian organized crime, Chinese smuggling operations, and corrupt officials in 4 states. "This wasn't petty theft," Andrea said, pacing in front of the jury. "This was systematic, organized exploitation of the most vulnerable members of our society." Marcus Washington and his network didn't just steal money and jewelry. They stole dignity. They stole independence. They stole people's final years of peace and security. She pulled up photos on the courtroom screens. Elderly faces, one after another. The widow in Connecticut who lost her husband's Medal of Honor collection. The retired professor in Massachusetts who lost first editions worth hundreds of thousands. The elderly couple in Rhode Island who lost everything and died homeless. These are just 3 of the 317 victims we know about, Andrea continued. There are likely hundreds more who never reported the theft, who were too ashamed or too confused or too afraid of their own family members to come forward. Then she called me to the stand. Walking up there, past Marcus, past the jury, past all those watching eyes, I felt Theodore with me, felt his strength, his integrity, his absolute belief in doing what was right even when it hurt. Andrea's questions were gentle but thorough. How long had I suspected Marcus? When did I contact the FBI? What was my role in the investigation? How did it feel to watch my own son try to steal from me? "It felt like dying," I said honestly. Like watching someone you love become someone you don't recognize. Like mourning a person who's still breathing. And yet you proceeded with the investigation. Why? Because it wasn't just about me. There were 60 other victims I knew about, and probably hundreds more I didn't. If I'd just protected myself and let Marcus continue, I'd be complicit in every theft he committed afterward. I couldn't live with that. Did you ever consider backing out? Dropping the case? Every single day. But then I'd think about the couple in Rhode Island who died in poverty, or the widow who lost her husband's legacy, or all the other families destroyed by greed. And I'd remember that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always necessary. The defense attorney saw that a slick man in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension tried to paint me as a vindictive mother who'd orchestrated an elaborate setup because Marcus had asked about assisted living. Isn't it true, Mrs. Washington, that you were angry when your son suggested you might need help managing your affairs? No. Isn't it true that you planted fake jewelry specifically to entrap him? I protected my real jewelry and documented his theft. That's not entrapment. That's self-defense. Isn't it true that you're a wealthy woman who could have simply moved your assets and avoided this entire situation? Yes, I'm wealthy. I built that wealth through 40 years of hard work and smart investments. And yes, I could have just protected myself. But that would have meant letting Marcus continue to prey on other vulnerable people. I couldn't do that. The defense attorney tried several more angles, but I'd spent 2 years preparing for this moment. I didn't falter, didn't break, didn't give him anything he could twist. When I stepped down, Camille was crying in the gallery. Not sad tears, but proud ones. She mouthed, "I love you, Grams," as I walked past. The next 3 days brought a parade of victims to the stand. Elderly people who'd been robbed by their own children, their caregivers, people they'd trusted. They told stories that made the jury wipe their eyes, that made even the judge look grim. Then came the FBI agents. Agent Torres detailed the investigation, the international connections, the scope of the operation. Special Agent Raymond Torres. No, wait. I already used that name. Let me continue with Torres. He showed evidence of the inheritance project Marcus had planned, the fake death certificate, the forged documents that would have legally erased me from existence. We believe Mrs. Washington would have been dead within 6 months, Torres testified. Not legally dead, actually dead. We found communications between Marcus Washington and an associate discussing permanent solutions to the mother problem. We believe they were planning her murder. The courtroom erupted. The judge had to bang his gavel 5 times to restore order. Marcus sat stone-faced, but Vanessa started crying, shaking her head like she hadn't known, like she was innocent. But the prosecution had her communications too. Text messages to Marcus. "When are we doing this?" "I'm tired of waiting. The old woman's taking forever to die naturally. Maybe we should help speed things along. They'd been planning to kill me. My own son and his wife had been planning to murder me. By the 4th day of trial, the defense had nothing left. They called character witnesses who testified that Marcus had always been charming, helpful, kind. But the prosecution countered with victims who testified that Marcus had been charming, helpful, and kind, right up until he robbed them blind. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they came back, every single charge came back guilty. All 63 counts: wire fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy, theft, racketeering, and the attempted murder charges added after Torres's testimony. Marcus showed no emotion when the verdict was read. But when the judge asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, he stood. "I'd like to address my mother." The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Washington, do you consent to hearing from the defendant?" Every instinct screamed no, but I nodded. Marcus turned to face me fully. "Mama, you taught me that family comes first, that loyalty matters above everything. And then you betrayed me. You set me up, you lied to me, you destroyed my life. For what? For strangers? For people who mean nothing to you? I taught you that integrity comes first. I said clearly. That doing right matters more than doing easy. You're the one who forgot those lessons. No, Mama. You're the one who forgot that blood is thicker than water. The full saying is, "The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb," I replied. It means the bonds we choose are stronger than the bonds we're born with. You chose greed. I chose justice. And that's why you're standing there in chains while I'm sitting here free. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Marcus stared at me for a long moment, then sat down without another word. Judge Harold Freeman, a stern black man in his 60s, looked at Marcus with something close to disgust. "Mr. Washington, in my 30 years on the bench, I have never seen a case quite like this. The calculated cruelty, the systematic exploitation, the betrayal of the most sacred bonds of family and trust. You didn't just steal money, you stole peace of mind, security, dignity, and in some cases, you stole lives." He shuffled his papers. "For the charges of wire fraud, elder abuse, theft, and conspiracy, I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison. For the attempted murder charges, I add another 15 years consecutive, not concurrent. That's a total of 40 years, Mr. Washington. You'll be 85 years old before you're eligible for parole. May God have mercy on your soul, because this court has none." Vanessa was sentenced separately, receiving 30 years for her role in the conspiracy. The other co-conspirators, as they were arrested over the following weeks, received sentences ranging from 5 years to 30 years, depending on their involvement. But the real victory came 3 weeks after the trial ended. Agent Torres called to tell me they'd recovered almost everything. The warehouse in Newark had held $230 million in stolen property. Raids in Moscow, Shanghai, and London recovered another $180 million. Swiss bank accounts held another $40 million. Combined with asset seizures from the convicted criminals, they'd recovered $450 million of the $462 million stolen. "The remaining $12 million is probably gone forever," Torres said. "But we're returning 97% of stolen property to victims. That's almost unheard of in cases like this." And because I'd authorized Sentinel Insurance to compensate victims while property was being recovered, not a single victim had to wait. Every person Marcus and his network had robbed received full restitution within 6 months of his conviction. The Victims' Justice Initiative launched in January with a ceremony at Sentinel Insurance headquarters. Victor Delacroix stood at the podium with me and announced a $50 million endowment to fund elder protection programs, family counseling for victims' families, and legal aid for elderly people facing financial exploitation. "None of this would have been possible without Dorothy Washington's courage," Victor said. "She risked everything to expose this operation. She's an inspiration to everyone who believes in justice." But the moment I'll never forget came afterward, when an elderly woman named Martha Wilson approached me. She'd been one of Marcus's victims, losing her late husband's Purple Heart Medal and his entire military pension to Marcus's fraud. "They recovered everything," Martha said, tears streaming down her weathered face. "My husband's medal, the money, all of it. My lawyer said it was because of you. Because you stopped your own son, even though it must have torn you apart." "I'm so sorry for what Marcus did to you," I said. "Don't you dare apologize for him." Martha took my hands in hers. "You're not responsible for his choices. But you are responsible for saving 238 families from destruction. That's what you should remember." 238 families. In the end, that's how many verified victims we found. 238 people who got their property back, their dignity back, their peace of mind back. Because I'd chosen justice over family, truth over loyalty, what was right over what was easy. The church threw a celebration for me on the first Sunday in February. The sanctuary was packed with people I'd taught over the years, families I'd known for decades, community members who wanted to honor what they called my bravery. Reverend Hughes called me to the front, and the entire congregation stood and applauded for 5 minutes straight. Sister Francine presented me with a plaque. Dorothy Washington, a woman of courage, integrity, and unwavering faith. You showed us what real strength looks like, Reverend Hughes said. Not the strength to tear people down, but the strength to stand up for what's right, even when it costs you everything. You're a light in the darkness, Sister Dorothy, and we're blessed to call you family. Camille spoke next, standing at the pulpit with Dante beside her. My granddaughter had grown up so much in these past months, her voice steady and strong. My father tried to destroy my grandmother, Camille said. He tried to steal from her, silence her, maybe even kill her. But Grams didn't break. She fought back, not just for herself but for hundreds of people she'd never even met. She taught me that who your parents are doesn't determine who you become. Your choices determine that, and I choose to be like my grandmother. The congregation erupted in amens and applause. I couldn't stop crying, the good kind of crying this time, the kind that comes from being surrounded by love you didn't know you deserved. After the service, a reporter from the Washington Post asked to interview me for a story about elder abuse and financial exploitation. Your case has sparked a national conversation, she said. Congress is considering new legislation to protect elderly people from family fraud. Law enforcement agencies are creating special task forces. You've changed the entire landscape of elder protection in this country. I just did what needed to be done, I said. That's what makes you extraordinary. You saw something wrong, and you didn't look away, even though looking away would have been easier. That's heroism. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a 71-year-old woman who'd lost her son but saved her soul. 3 months later, Interpol invited me to their headquarters in Lyon, France, to receive their International Justice Award for my role in exposing the criminal network. I'd never been to France, never even left the United States except for a trip to Niagara Falls on the Canadian side 30 years ago. Felicia and Jerome came with me, along with Camille and Dante. We stood in that beautiful headquarters building while officials from 27 countries applauded, and a dignitary from Interpol placed a medal around my neck. Mrs. Dorothy Washington's actions led to the arrest of 83 criminals across 6 countries, the Interpol official said in accented English. Her courage saved hundreds of victims and exposed a network that had been operating for over a decade. She is a hero not just to America, but to the world. The medal was heavy around my neck, cold metal that somehow felt warm. Theodore would have been so proud. He'd always believed in standing up for what was right, in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. I'd honored his memory by refusing to become a victim, by fighting back, by turning my pain into purpose. But the best moment came later, at the hotel, when Dante said, "Grams, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." "What do you mean, baby?" "I want to be someone who does the right thing even when it's hard, someone who protects people, someone brave." I pulled him close. "You already are, sweetheart. Every day you get up and face the world after what your father did, that's bravery. Every day Camille goes to school and holds her head high, that's courage. You're already the people I hoped you'd become." We scattered Theodore's ashes in France, at his request. He'd always wanted to see Paris but never had the chance. So we took him there, my children and grandchildren and we said goodbye to him properly, with love and tears and promises to honor his legacy. When we came home, I sold the house in Oak Hills. Too many memories, too much pain. I bought a smaller place closer to the church, a cozy bungalow with a garden where Camille and Dante could visit without walking through rooms where their father had plotted my destruction. The Victims' Justice Initiative grew beyond anything I'd imagined. Within a year, we had offices in 12 states, had helped over 600 families, and had pushed through legislation in 8 states, creating stronger protections for elderly people against financial exploitation by family members. I served on the advisory board, speaking at conferences, training law enforcement, meeting with victims who needed to know they weren't alone. Every person I helped felt like honoring Theodore's memory, like making something good from something terrible. Camille got accepted to Harvard Medical School with a full scholarship. At her graduation party, she pulled me aside and said, "You saved my life, Grams. When everything fell apart, you showed me that our family's story doesn't end with Dad's mistakes. It ends with us choosing to be better." Dante started a youth group at church specifically for kids whose parents were incarcerated. Someone needs to tell them they're not bad people just because their parents made bad choices, he explained. Someone needs to be for them what Grams was for me. 5 years after Marcus's conviction, I received a letter from him in prison. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. "Mama," it read, "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I finally understand what you did and why. In here, I've seen what real criminals look like, people without conscience or remorse. I see what I became, and I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught, but sorry for what I did. Sorry for betraying you, for planning to hurt you, for forgetting every value you and Dad taught me. You were right to stop me. I just wish you'd stopped me sooner, before I destroyed so many lives. I'm glad you're okay, Mama. I'm glad you're doing good work with the initiative, and I'm especially glad that Camille and Dante have you to show them what real strength looks like. Love, Marcus." I cried when I read it, not because it changed anything, but because somewhere in that prison cell, my son had found a tiny piece of his humanity again. It didn't erase what he'd done, didn't make it hurt less, didn't make me want a relationship with him. But it meant that maybe, somewhere deep inside, the little boy who brought me dandelions still existed. I never wrote back. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But I forgave him, not for his sake but for mine, because carrying hatred was too heavy a burden for a woman my age. On what would have been Theodore's 85th birthday, I stood in front of the congregation at Oakwood Baptist and told our whole story. The betrayal, the investigation, the trial, the aftermath. I held nothing back. "I'm telling you this," I said, "because somewhere in this church, someone might be going through the same thing. Someone might be realizing that their child, their spouse, their caregiver is stealing from them. And that person needs to know they're not alone. They need to know it's okay to protect yourself. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to choose justice even when it means turning in someone you love." 3 people came to me after that service. 3 elderly members who'd been too ashamed to admit their own children were financially exploiting them. We helped all 3 of them through the Victims' Justice Initiative, recovered their assets, and got their families the help they needed. That's when I realized my real purpose. Not just stopping Marcus, but using my story to help others find the courage to stop their Marcus, to protect themselves, to understand that love doesn't mean letting people destroy you. Now, at 76 years old, I spend my days working with the initiative, spoiling my grandchildren, serving my church, and living the life Theodore and I dreamed of. It's not the life I expected, raising my grandchildren because their father's in prison, carrying the weight of betrayal, standing as a public figure for elder protection. But it's a good life, a purposeful life, a life that matters. Marcus comes up for parole in 15 years. The parole board will ask if I support his release. I don't know what I'll say. Maybe by then, I'll have an answer. Or maybe some questions don't need answers. Only acceptance. What I do know is this. I am Dorothy Washington, daughter of strong parents, widow of a good man, mother to 3 children, grandmother to 3 beautiful souls. I am a retired teacher, a survivor, an advocate, and a woman who chose truth over comfort. I am not defined by what was done to me. I am defined by what I did about it. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.